Hello, you are watching this Supply Chain Digital show brought to you by Supply Chain Digital Magazine, Procurement Magazine, and BizClick. My name is Sean Ashcroft. I'm editor of Supply Chain Digital. In this show, we're bringing you all the latest news, views, analysis, opinions from the world of supply chain and procurement right here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and other digital platforms. At this point, I'd like to welcome my co-host, Procurement Magazine editor, İlkan Ozsevim. Hey, İlkan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Now, a quick reminder at this point for all of you watching, please do reach out in the comments section, which you'll find just under the show area. And if you haven't already, there's still time to vote in our LinkedIn poll. And on that note, İlkan, what is our poll this week?
Thanks, Sean. So our poll for this week is, what is the biggest way in which we as consumers can promote greener supply chains? And the options are order less online, boycott greenwashing firms, vote for greener politicians, and recycle and reuse. So what do you think about that?
Well, the reason I put order less online is because I think my son alone is probably punching a hole through the ozone layer with the amount of stuff he orders for home delivery. But I know that's e-commerce has just exploded during lockdown. So, you know, there's a lot more traffic on the road because of that. We've all seen those sort of scooters buzzing around. But also, you know, I think probably recycling and reusing is a big one, isn't it? And I don't know about the greener politicians so much because quite often they promise one thing and then deliver another. But anyway, we'll see a bit later on, I guess, what people think about that. But for now, we're going to move on to supply chain and procurement news. So why don't you kick us off then, İlkan, with procurement news? What caught your eye in the last few weeks?
Perfect. Thanks, Sean. So I'd like to talk about a piece that looks into how private engagement stimulates public procurement. Gareth Rhys-Williams, the government chief commercial officer, advocates the notion that government procurement and public-private collaboration benefits the economy. Now, the article looks at several aspects of procurement in this context, from centralized procurement to things like competitive bidding, as well as different public procurement setups in different regions. The main takeaway, though, is that for a long time, there's been this kind of assumption that public procurement somehow stands apart from private ownership and should do so. According to some, but it's becoming more and more obvious, especially with things like bidding systems and collaboration, that there is a merging between the two, or even that they are not as isolated as most people assume. As an example, the article looks at the UK Public Procurement Bill. As part of this bill, the government plans to create a simpler and more flexible commercial system in the hopes of better meeting the needs of the country. So this is a fundamental change, but of course, that's just one domestic example. But across regions and across the globe, public procurement has a core commercial engine. And market forces such as supply and demand and healthy competition are actually integral to the public procurement process and can really help to drive effective public services as well. So, moving on from procurement to supply chain, what caught your eye in April, Sean?
It was actually a story I did yesterday. Because in supply chain, as you know yourself, İlkan, same with procurement, we just read so much stuff about what the problems are, whether it's, you know, Ukraine war, post-pandemic sort of things still rolling on, or cost inflation and all of that. And but I think often what can be more interesting, because we've heard so much about that, is how companies are actually dealing with these problems on the ground day to day. and what that looks like. And that's what this story is. This is a piece about Heineken Europe and how it's managed to transform its supply chain in the past few years. Now, lifting the lid on this was Thibaut Baudon, who's Chief Transformation Officer for Heineken in France. And he was talking about how, just in the first year of their transformation alone, they've seen 52% reduction in the number of unique bottles they're using across the region, 50% less secondary packaging, or the cardboard, and wrapping that goes around their products. And probably just as tellingly, whereas before they had 25 separate supply and operation planning teams right across Europe, they've now got just one. And they've also cut carbon emissions by almost a quarter since 2018. So these are sizable achievements right across the board. And what's really interesting about it is that it's a digital transformation that has actually worked, that's actually been seen through to fruition, because according to a McKinsey report, as few as 30% of all digital transformations, whether they be in supply chain or any other area of business, fail for one reason or another. And one of the reasons that many digital transformations fail is because companies look at them all wrong. They think that a digital transformation is a technology project, whereas in fact it isn't. It's a people project. It's a massive change project, and people in change don't always rub along together that easily. It needs a lot of finessing, and it needs a lot of work in that area, and that's what Heineken did. They made their transformation like a people first kind of process. And Baudon also said the one thing that really helped was that he headed it up. He headed up a special unit that oversaw it and coordinated it and made sure that they were sticking to their founding principles, which were leadership, making sure that they understood the competency of all their people, how skilled they are now or were then, and how skilled they needed to be in order for this to work. And also, just as importantly, communication, so that they had to communicate around the local realities of all their different business units across Europe, because obviously from country to country those change. And going back to the people first approach, Baudon said that they set out to target heads, hearts, and hands. Now, on the face of it, it sounds a little bit cheesy, but in actual fact, this is why they are able to drive through the transformation to completion. So by heads, they meant answering the questions that people had. Why are we transforming? What's the business case for it? Hearts, making sure people were engaged with the transformation, that they took people along with them. And hands, because people want to understand how they can contribute on a day-to-day basis to the transformation. So I thought that was interesting and quite telling, and probably other companies could learn a fair bit from looking at how Heineken went about that. So anyway, Olkan, back to you.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, so we're going to take a quick ad break. Don't go anywhere, and we'll see you in a minute.
Hi, I'm Leander Cheetham. I am Head of Strategic Account Partnerships for LeasePlan UK. The LeasePlan is a global fleet leasing company. We operate in 29 countries and we run about 1.9 million vehicles across the globe. We're also a founding partner of the EV100. And the EV100 is a coalition of household company names that are pulling together to help with the electrification of fleets across the world. LeasePlan is working closely with G4S to help them achieve their decarbonisation targets. This has been really difficult because the automotive industry is facing real difficulty in supply. We're not able to get as many vehicles as we would like out to the end users to start the process of decarbonisation. So we have therefore developed a solution whereby we go and buy stock vehicles of low carbon emitting vehicles that we can provide to G4S to use in the interim period. Looking into the future, LeasePlan continuing to help roll out the decarbonisation project and also looking to find new and different ways of adding value through the whole relationship that we're building together.
Perfect. Okay, so welcome back. And before we do go any further, let's just take a quick look at who is interacting with the show in the comments section. So we have Edmir Kayosa from Angola. Hello there, Edmir. We've got Yanis Stamoulis from Greece. We have people in from Egypt. And yeah, essentially people all across the region and all across many regions. And we also have Sheila from North Carolina. We also have some links to the articles that we've showcased today. So please do take a look through the comment section and you can read the articles directly there. And yeah, please keep engaging. And so, yeah, back to you, Sean.
Yeah, thanks, Elkan. So we're going to, in a minute, focus on the April issues of Supply Chain Digital and also Procurement magazine. But before we do so, let's just have a quick butchers at one of our special occasional publications, which is the Supply Chain Top 100 Women. Now, if you haven't already, strongly recommend that you have a little look at this because it's really quite an inspiring and insightful read. Some really quite remarkable stories of remarkable women doing remarkable jobs. But anyway, back to our regular monthly titles. So Ilkan, why don't you kick us off here? What feature would you like to focus from April's procurement issue?
Perfect, thanks, Sean. So the feature I'd like to discuss is headlined Data Analytics and Procurement, Creating Value Through Optimization. Now this piece, it looks at Thai Software's Transport Management System, or TMS, which exemplifies how data analytics empowers freight to achieve maximum efficiency. But of course, freight is just one example of this, and it essentially serves as a microcosm of thousands of different businesses that data analytics actually does apply to and is applying to more and more. It opens by saying, from the standpoint of augmented effectiveness, procurement and data analytics are now inseparable. Any procurement organization that has its finger on the pulse of global events will be utilizing data analytics throughout their entire ecosystem. In the piece, Walter Mitchell, who is Thai Software's CEO, says, we've got analytics implemented from outside sources like Parade.ai and Greenscreens.ai, and these are all tools that are involved in the analytics work. Especially with the explosion of AI into the mainstream, which is masterful at big data analysis, as we know, it's now obvious that data analytics is going to be utilized and spread across business operations, including and perhaps especially procurement from this point on and more and more. He concludes by emphasizing that using data analytics for procurement is an essential part of the process, and it's really important to use as many tools as are available in order to achieve maximum effectiveness. An important piece of advice that procurement professionals will do well to take note of. And what about you, Sean? What feature from April Supply Chain have you gone for?
Well, mine's a freight-related feature as well, actually, although from a completely different angle. I'm looking at a piece that was exploring sea freight and the move to clean fuel for that sector, which is a huge deal and a massive undertaking. And it comes down to a decree from the International Maritime Organization, which oversees the global sea freight industry. And they want that industry running on clean energy by 2050, just part of the global drive to net zero. But this piece looks at what the cost of that is, on the water to sea shipping companies. But before I dive into it, if you just take sea shipping as an industry, the scale of it is mind-boggling, because around 90% of all trade involves sea shipping, and an estimated 11 billion tons of goods are transported by ship every year. So, the volumes are just vast. Now, sea freight companies, they know that if they are to hit their carbon targets individually and collectively as an industry, then zero emission fuels and vessels will have to start being deployed at scale over the coming decade, at least, if not sooner. Now, clean fuels do increase the total cost of ownership by between 40 to 60% at the moment, depending on the route. So that's pretty punitive at a time when sea shipping, has never been more expensive, although the prices are coming down now a little bit. Well, I spoke to Alex Hersham, who's CEO of Zen Cargo, a logistics provider and freight forwarder. And Hersham says that sea freight carriers are going to keep a very close eye on which of their vessels are compliant. And they're also analyze which of their older ships can be scrapped if there's no return on investment in making them compliant. It says for older vessels, there's probably going to be no choice but to switch to cleaner and more expensive biofuels. The other option is just simply slow down. As with a car, if you drive at a moderate speed, your fuel consumption goes down. It's exactly the same, I think, with any fuel-driven engine. But Hersham feels that shipping companies will probably have to increase the cost of the service they provide to help to pay for new energy efficiency technologies. So what degree they pass on to the customers remains to be seen. And that, of course, is going to have ramifications of its own. So very much a case of sit back and wait to see what happens on that one. Anyway, back to you, Ilkan.
Perfect. Thanks, Sean. So onto the poll. Here's a quick reminder of the poll question. The question was, what is the biggest way in which we as consumers can promote greener supply chains? And okay, I'll let you read the results for that, Sean. What does it look like?
Well, so I'll do it in ascending order. So actually in joint last place is order less online with 6%, and also 6% is boycott greenwashing firms. In second place with 9% is vote for greener politicians. And way out front with 79% is recycle and reuse, which I guess is that's what it will drive the circular economy, circular supply chain, is recycling and reusing products. I guess particularly electronics products that at the moment, a typical phone, for example, is probably, we ditch them, don't we, after a couple of years of use. We don't tend to recycle or reuse them. And there's lots of examples of technologies that could be refurbished as well and that resold. I know these markets are growing. I guess really just a question of connecting all the dots around making supply chains circular. It's a huge undertaking. And it won't work ultimately unless people change their behaviors. I don't know how much you reuse and recycle, Ilkan, but I know I could do a lot more on that front, probably.
Yeah, same, Sean. To be honest, I mean, I'm definitely more aware and more conscious of the way that I engage with products. Let's say.
Same here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
which is why I thought actually boycotting greenwashing firms might have got a little bit more attention.
yeah,
Because that's a big, factor of change. Companies are very aware that, if they're caught out greenwashing, intentionally or otherwise, they know that reputationally that's going to damage them and cause people to switch brands. So I think the reality is that probably will be a big driver, bigger than 6%. But anyway, that is unfortunately all we have time for in this episode. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you for interacting with us, if watching live, and for taking part in the poll. Do remember that this show is also available to watch on demand. So do please share it with colleagues or friends or anyone else you know who may be interested in supply chain and procurement. A big thank you to Ilkan, to Ernie and the rest of the video production team, to Andy and the design team for the great looking magazines, and to Kaylee and the marketing team. This has been a BizClick production. We'll be with you at the same time on the last Thursday of May. So do make a note of that. And we look forward to you joining us for the next episode. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next time.
thanks.